Yeah, good afternoon. I think we can start. So let me share the screen. Okay, so all of you, can you hear me? Yeah, anybody?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So what we'll study today is something called a hardware description language. To understand what an hardware description language is, let us go through. So far in the course, you have studied that how to specify a problem uh, either as a sequential circuit or as a combinational circuit, and then how to realize the circuit using gates or flip-flops. And then also we did minimizations, and we found that there are equivalent forms which are easier to implement using maybe less number of gate or something. But what this so far we have talked about discrete components in the sense that we'll have gates and such things. But in practice, in any of the modern electronic system or digital system that you see, you will actually have chips. you will have VLSI circuits where there is a chip with some ports added to it, and this way, and as you know, this can be very complex. So like the earliest chips that we worked with as students may be having only say thousands of transistors, but now there are billions of transistors. So if you look at any chip, forget about the CPU inside a mobile phone, just the DSP, the signal processing chip that does the camera and the audio and other things, or the communication part, they have billions of transistors. So in order to or design systems or build such systems, there are a number of steps that are to be followed, and it's like as complex as software development in general, maybe even more complex. And then there are large teams and other people involved in such design. So if we look at the overall flow, the synthesis process, so this process of finally building a chip from some requirement is called a synthesis process. And you go through several steps. You first have an application problem in mind, which has some requirements specified. And then you have an algorithm, which is basically, which you have already seen many examples, say the lift controller and other things. You have a set of steps or set of processes that you should follow. And then you have an architecture. You are given an architecture for realizing this, maybe a set of interconnects, some memory, some signal processor, some CPU, and so on. And this architecture is then transferred to something called a high-level synthesis, a high-level description, maybe a gate level or a block level description. And finally, this high level, so there are three levels actually. This high level synthesis is often in terms of functional blocks. They would get transformed to something called a logic level synthesis, which is a collection of gates and flip-flops. And finally, the logic level synthesis is transformed something called a physical synthesis. So physical synthesis is nothing but a layout diagram or a map in the, so you have a silicon wafer, and you have all the interconnects and the transistors and everything. So the final physical synthesis is nothing but a geometry. It's a set of rectangles and polygons and interconnects and wires. So wires, even wires themselves are actually rectangles. They are not straight lines. They have a weight. They are rectangles, and so it's just a geometry, and this geometry is used to generate a mask, the optical mask, laser-based mask, and finally you get the wafer. You fabricate the wafer, and then you package it and everything and get the chip. So this is the overall picture. So now there are a lot of intermediate steps and circular processes that people follow to do this process. This entire things does take a lot of time. So the moment, say for example, Intel conceptualizes some kind of processor, it takes about 5-6 years to finally have the chip, shipping the chip. Right. So often this is kind of this is what is called a Y chart, and there are three directions which we'll see. One is called a behavioral domain. That means you specify the design as a set of behaviors, desired behaviors. Okay, as a set of maybe a flow chart or a logic diagram or a Boolean expression or some kind of transfer function. So this, if you come down from outward, the outer circles are more abstract levels, whereas the inner circle are more detailed levels. So the outer circle in the behavioral domain, you have systems. For example, you have a power management block and you have a communication block in a mobile chip and so on. And then as you go in, you have algorithms. And then there is something called a register. So each of these are called labels. Each circle is a label. And then you have something called a register transfer level, RTL, register transfer level, which is again in the terms of some basic blocks. And then you come down to the logic level, which is kind of gates and so on. And then finally you come down to a transfer function level, which is at the voltage level. And then similarly, so this behavioral domain is kind of independent of the implementation. It's kind of, it doesn't matter you use a CMOS or something, how you implement. It just specifies the functioning of the system, input output of the system. And then you have a structural domain, which talks about the how you implement. You implement using flip-flops or gate or circuits or whatever, or what type of this kind of thing. So this is called, so again you have processors and then ALUs, these are basic blocks, RAM, etc. Then gate level, and by the way, this logic is not equivalent to gate. This logic is a Boolean expression, whereas this is a actual gate. It's the logical description of a gate. So you have flip-flops, gates, and finally you have transistors in the structural domain. And then, of course, you have the physical domain, where this entire down line of the Y is nothing but a floor plan. It's called a real estate. So you have a chip, how much area you can use. So you have physical design, then floor plans, then modules, then a cell. So these cells are sometimes called standard cells. Like these are like gates and flip-flops for which the actual physical layout is very well optimized and well known. It's kind of a library available. And these cells you place to get at the transistor level to get your final layout. So it's the geometry. So all this converges, and there is a inward moving spiral that is followed in the design process. So you have a behavioral description, you come down with a structural description, come down with a floor plan, then again you go back, you have a further register, RTL description, logic description. So you spiral in a top-down manner to get the final design. Okay, so this is the entire design flow. Now the thing is that since this entire process is extremely complex for reasonably complicated systems, this cannot be manually done. This cannot be manually done. And you have something called CAD tools or EDA tools, electronic design automation tools, to do this. So the moment you go into an electronic design automation, you can no longer have like this FSM and other things which by hand you draw, you do a Carnot map, do the minimization and all this, you cannot have anymore. You need some kind of language to describe them, because it's a program. A EDA tool is a program, a software. So you need a language to describe them, and you need compilers to convert from one description to the next, from one level to the next. You need not exactly compiler, you need something which transfers from one level to the other. And there are several things that are performed in this process. Okay, so the first of all, there is a specification. There is a specification, and this specification actually gives you it gives you the requirements, what you want to do. Again, this specification can be of two types. It can be a behavioral specification. It can be a structural specification corresponding to these two axes. It can be a behavioral or a structural specification. Now, these specifications, you can do several things on them. You can optimize them. Okay, you can optimize them. We shall come later. Okay, so you optimize them. So after you have done this verification, after you have done this specification, you can do two things next. One thing is that you can synthesize. Okay, and if you want to synthesize, you have to do the level transfers. You have to spiral down this to the floor plan or the actual geometry level. Or you can synthesize, you can simulate it. Okay, you can simulate it. Simulate it means you are not actually building the circuit, but you have a specification. You are simulating the specification, and you are checking it's giving the correct result or not. Okay, so all the software we see that actually runs and gives, in this context we call them a simulation. They just, the software tool simulates the hardware. But in addition, we can have a synthesis steps here, where if all this after this simulation we verify that the desired output is given, or even after synthesis, this verification is actually placed in many places in between. And then we verify things like whether the timing is correct, whether the power requirement is correct, whether the placement routing do not violate the geometry that is permitted by the technology, CMOS or something. So when you do, after all this succeeds, you can come to the synthesis. So this verification happens everywhere in between. Okay, so as you can see, there are two steps. So now we see this specification often comes at the highest level. As you go down, there are other type of languages also. At the highest level, this is done by something called a hardware description language. Okay, hardware description language. There are two popular hardware description language. One is Verilog and one is VHDL. So Verilog was is mainly pioneered by one EDA company called Cadence, and there are many companies which do VHDL also. Okay, so what we'll do is the following. Because see, we do, all right. So what happens after you have written a Verilog description? So suppose you have a piece of hardware, you have a structural description or a behavioral description of the hardware in terms of Verilog. So now, as if your FSM or whatever you have drawn before, it's now a program in a language, or a description in a language. Okay. So now, what you do with this description? You can, as I have said before, you can do two things. Either you can do synthesis. So how do you do synthesis? This Verilog, we'll see today that we will use an open source, not open source, rather free Verilog simulator called iVerilog. So we'll have two steps. One is using, we'll first compile the description language to see that it's syntactically correct. And then we'll have a dot out. And this a dot out will give to the simulator, and the simulator will simulate the input output. For a given input, it will simulate the output. So what we need for this purpose? Because see, we are only simulating, so we need a test bench. Just like when you test a software, you need a test case. You need a test bench. What the test bench consists of? The test bench may consist of values of input variables and sometimes values of desired output variables also. Not only values of input variables, it may contain a timed signal. So say input is on for 1 for 2 milliseconds, then 0 for 1 millisecond, and so on. So you have to specify an input time. Say you have an input A, you basically have a waveform for a timed waveform for A. So if you have written a Verilog description of a hardware, you have compiled it, and then you have a test bench, which is again a Verilog program. So unlike normal software where input test cases are just user inputs, here the test inputs are also written in the form of a Verilog program. So this test input plus the program, if you give to the simulator, it will give you the output. If it is just, it's not timed, it's just logic levels, it will print the logic levels using some display command. Or you can have a waveform. What it will do, it will write down the output waveform into something called a VCR file. It will write the output to a VCR file. And then you can visualize this VCR file using something called a GTK waveform viewer. And we'll stop there. If this is fine, if this meets our specification, we are happy with it, we stop there. Our synthesis, our simulation is over. But now suppose we are not just happy with simulation, you also want to do an synthesis. So now there are two ways of doing it. One possibility is that after this Verilog description is there, you go through further down levels. You go through all these levels: transistor layout, cell layout. Okay. So this, as you go inside, these are called back-end EDA. And you stay in the outside, you have this front-end EDA. So the front-end EDA, so each of these EDA do their optimization, do their automated design, everything they do their verification, everything they do. Okay, and then finally you come out with a mask or a design, physical design, and then that is given. That is given to the, say, chip fabricator. Okay. Now this chip fabricator, if it is a very CPU kind of thing, which will be a mass used, many people will use it. You can do a full you can do very detailed level of optimization and then do the fabrication, have a full fabrication pipeline just for the chip. But if it is used is not so widespread as, let's say, a Pentium chip or something, then what you can do instead is design something called an ASIC chip, application specific IC. So you send it to the ASIC manufacturer, they will give you back the ASIC chip. There are alternate techniques also, alternate possibilities also. So even if the use is even lower, maybe just in the lab or for your particular project or something, you need not even make a ASIC chip. What you can do is to have something called a programmable hardware. It's called an FPGA, Field Programmable Gate Array. It's kind of a hardware which is programmable. Okay. So usually Xilinx, there will be Xilinx and other boards which make these FPGAs. So what we'll use is that after you have your compiled Verilog output, you download it to the FPGA. That means you kind of program the FPGA, and then you have your hardware ready. You download the FPGA, you run the FPGA, you see the result. Okay, and you have these FPGA boards will have ports which you can connect to your computer, and it will download from your computer with some interface and application set there. Okay, so why? But this then why people go for ASIC? Because these FPGAs are not really optimized. They can eat a lot of power. They can take a lot of time. They are not as fast as ASICs. They are not as power efficient as ASIC. Okay, but just for trying, just for field trial, that's why it's called field programmable. You can use the FPGA. So if you had your physical lab, you would have an experiment where you would actually download it to FPGA and build the hardware. But anyway, so what we'll do is that we'll just. By the way, when you are actually fabricating the circuit or synthesizing the circuit, you no longer need a test bench. Okay, you no longer need a test bench. Okay, because see, what is the input and what is the all this simulation, it doesn't matter. It's a final hardware. Okay, so there is no point in doing simulation. There, of course, you can do simulation for verification, optimization, and such purpose, but finally, there is no use. For example, one simple thing, you cannot really put in your test benches when you design this timing and you simulate, you intentionally insert delays. There is a command called #10. It will mean #t will mean it will insert a delay of t. Okay, but in hardware, it depends. If you are using a CMOS, it will actually have a delay. You cannot. There is no scope of inserting a delay there. Whatever is the delay, the hardware will give you the delay. Okay, so so that's the difference. We will mainly stick to this synthesis part. All right. And what, so this conversion of this basic synthesis simulation, this will be taken care of the Verilog compiler. We will actually see what this Verilog language is. Okay, so this Verilog language, it's based on a fundamental principle, which is two things. One is something called a net list. Okay, so what this net list means is that at any of these levels you go, a net list is kind of a graph where the nodes are functional elements. So these nodes are kind of, say, there is some input and there is some output. Okay, so every node is a function. And then these nodes are connected. Okay, what is this connection? These connections are basically the output of this goes as the input of this. Output of this goes as the input of this. All right. So each of these connections, you can imagine them as wires. Okay. Each of these wires are kind of, because see, they are nothing but logic values. They are not, each of these are Boolean variables. So you can think of, so this is nothing but a Boolean variable. This is a wire, physically this is a wire. This is actually a Boolean variable. Okay. So these Boolean variables are called, these are equivalent to variables, are called nets. There can be different type of things. There can be, so actually nets is a more general term, but let's initially assume it like that. Okay, so these are just values. Now these functions, these blocks, they can either be standard blocks like AND, or these are called standard cells, for which any gates are standard cells for which exact layout we know that they are in the library, or these can be user defined blocks where you define in terms of either a truth table or a connection of gates, a circuit built out of gates, so and so on. This can be blocks. So these functions, so these are kind of variables and these are functions. These functions are called modules. So this is a module. This is a module. These are called modules. And modules have ports. Modules have ports as a port list. There are two types of ports, input ports and output ports. So the what ports comes from the chip. So if you look in your chip, they will have a serial port or a parallel port coming out. So in general, input outputs are called ports. Or in a chip, you have pins. So so these modules have ports, and these ports themselves are nets. Okay, and there are two types of port, input port and output port. Now, these connections, because see what we need, see HDL is a program, so it's a text, is a piece of text, is a textual description of the hardware. Okay, in a textual description of the hardware, you cannot draw diagrams like this. Okay, you can write functions. Okay, you cannot draw diagrams like this. So how are these connections established? These are connections are established by, let's say this is module 1, this is module 2, this is module 3. These are established by having shared ports in the post list. So you see the output port of M3 is one of the input port of M3 is one of the input port of M2. Okay, so if you write down a set of modules and you have their port list and there is a common input and output ports, they mean a connection. Okay, so this is how a hardware is converted to a function kind of thing. Okay, so now you see in effect, this is like a C function. This is almost like a C function. So you have a function name, which is the module name. Say I have a module name half adder. I have a module name full adder, and there are input outputs which are nets here. They are actually signal values or signal. They may be a where, they may be registers, they may be something. They can be storage elements. So they are something. So then you have this and this this kind of module and then nets, netlist, net ports, and all this can come at various levels of abstractions. Okay, so you can have modules at very high levels, say half adder level. Then you can have modules as a get level. Then you can have modules even at the geometry level. So this is my layout, let's say this is my chip. So this is a block which does something, and this is another block, and then you have some connections in between. So this is a net, this is a module, and so on. So you can have this kind of VHDL description, Verilog description, even down to the geometry level. Okay, so and the good thing is that this is very much like a C program, very much like a C program in the sense that you have a function and you have parameters of the function, and there is a message passing between the functions in terms of these parameters. The only difference perhaps is that in a C program, if you call a function, you can call it as many times as you want. You call a function, the control goes to the function, and when the function is over, it returns back to the calling function. So you can call a function as many times as you want. But here, these are kind of not calls, but these are instances. So if you are using 4 half adders, 4 say 8-bit half adders, it's not that a half adder module you are calling 4 times. You have to have in your VHDL, in your Verilog program, 4 copies of adder modules, 4 instances of adder modules. You have to have 4 instances. Why? Because in a C program, the lines, by the way, just like C, every line in VHDL is terminated with a semicolon, delimited with a semicolon. So, in C, the program is sequential, one after the other, after the other, after the other. But since this is a hardware, you can have a set of statements which are concurrent. Okay, so if you have a set of modules, say adder modules, half adder modules, and they are concurrent, that means they will add at the same time. They'll add at the same time. There are 4 instances, and you can add. So you can have concurrent statements in a Verilog program, which you usually don't have in a C program unless you have special means of doing that. Okay, so this is the basic thing. So as I said, this is the design flow. So this is how it will go. This is a typical Verilog program, a high-level description. I'll come to details of the syntax. The syntax is very much like C. It's a high-level description. Then you have a register transfer level, which is basically multiplexer, gates, flip-flops, and so on. Then, no, sorry, not multiplexer. These are like blocks, multiplexer blocks or flip-flop blocks or gate blocks. From that, you come to logic level design. And from that, you come to physical level design. Okay, so these are the steps. This conversion, there are many things that happen inside in this conversion. First is there is plain conversion, then there is optimization, then there is verification, and so on. We will not bother about them; they are not in the scope of this thing. But optimization is somewhat. That's why you might have seen that this Quinn McCluskey and others, they can be programmed. You can easily write a program for them. Okay, but we will not really bother about this conversion mechanism, but we will rather bother about this description language. Okay, so this is what we say, that there is a okay. Now this is Verilog. This can again be 2 type of statements can be there. One is called a behavioral statement, which just gives you the truth table kind of thing, input output. And the other can be, it can be a structural statement, which says actually how they are connected. It says you what the structure is, what the thing is. So both type of statements can come. They can be mixed also inside a Verilog program. Okay, and of course these are iterated. So you have the behavioral design, then you come down to a structure, then you come down to a physical, and finally you have a tape out. Tape out is the final fabrication. Okay, now let me go to another set of slides. Which is, or I think I have in the desktop. This is a set of slides we have borrowed from University of Massachusetts at Amherst. I'll give you a little more description of the. So this is we acknowledge University of Massachusetts Amherst for this tutorial. There are many other tutorials also available. Okay, so this is the basic structure. Just like a C program, a Verilog program will consist, just like a C program consists of a set of functions, a Verilog program will consist of a set of modules. A set of modules. Yeah, any problem? Okay, it will consist of a set of modules. The so I have written typical one module, and we'll see what this can be. These are some from their course anyway. So a module description starts with this. This is a header. You write module followed by module name, then within bracket the set of module ports, the port list, or sometimes called a terminal list also, module terminal list. Then you have a set of module terminal definitions. There are two types of terminal, a where terminal and a reg terminal, register terminal and a where terminal. So these are like variables. So this where terminal means it has no storage. Whenever the value changes, it changes. A reg terminal means it has a storage. It can store for some time, it can hold for some time. So you have a set of variable declaration basically, which we call a terminal definition. And then you have a set of statements which determine the functionality of the module. Finally, you have an end module. So what are these functionality? There can be several type of functionality. One can be just the assign. Assign means say y equal to a, x or b. This assignment. So the left hand side of assign should be a terminal. The right hand side can be one single terminal or a combination of terminal by some functions. Okay. Now this functionality can be again be two types. It can be behavioral and structural. In the behavioral way, we can have either as a Boolean expression, the right hand side is a Boolean expression, or you can write the entire thing as a truth table. We will see how you can write the entire thing as a truth table. Okay, so this way you can write, or it can be other modules also. It can be this equal to y equal to half adder a b. It can be other modules also. Or these functional statements can be structural also. Structural like it's that this is connected to this is connected to this by some function. We'll see soon example. They can be structural, they can be behavioral, but they are functionalities. They do some assignment, they do some computation. Let's take an example of a full adder. So this is the full adder circuit. So module name full adder, 4 ports, A, B carry in at the input ports, carry out and sum at the output ports or terminals. We also call them terminals sometimes. All right. So then you have to have a definition. So these are the list. So input A, B carry in, output carry out sum. These are the input and output terminal. So see here, both the input and output terminals are present. In the next line, you have to write which is input, which is output. And this slash slash, just like C, slash 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 star, these are the comments. This W1, W2, W3, W4 are the internal variables or internal nets. They can be several type. Where is one type. Where type means that it doesn't store. It's a single value. So this is a single value. So these are the internal values. These are just like temporary variables. And now you come to the set of functions. What this set of function means? This is so W1 is XOR of this is a XOR of W1 AB. W1 is XOR of AB. Okay, XOR is a structural element already there. Okay, and this #10 is a delay. Okay. Similarly, so one thing you can realize this W1, W2, these where variables are nothing but these values here. They are the values here. Okay, they are some of the values that are so. This is, I don't know which one is W1, I have to check out. Maybe this is W1, this is W2, this is W3, this is W4. These are intermediate values of the signals. Okay, and these are functions. I'll come to these functions later. Let me first talk about some simpler functions. So you see, this is kind of a Boolean expression that we have written. Okay, it's kind of a Boolean expression. So what this means is that you apply the XOR module on W1AB. We will define the XOR module later, but the output, this XOR gate, okay, let me tell it now only. This XOR gate has a delay of 10. When you actually synthesize, this XOR gate may not have a delay of 10. It may have something else. It will have a delay of 10. Here we have forced it to have a delay of 10. All right, there can be other ways also. Let me tell what there is other way. So this is like, so similarly input, output, and you have a register variables. These are some variables which can retain values, unlike where. All right, so this statement means always at a, so when this thing is true, as long as this thing is true, okay, as long as this thing, so what does this mean? This means that whenever any of these changes value, these values will change. These values will change. Whenever A, B, C in changes value, C out sum will change the value. Okay, this means whenever this is true, whenever A or this expression is true, you run the following process. Okay, what you run the process? I'll explain these terms again. So you begin. So this is a compound statement. These two statements in between begin and end. This will whenever this is true, this will happen. This is A XOR B XOR C. Seen. This is sum. And carry out is A and AB plus AC plus BC. Is the standard definition of full adder. Okay, and these are concurrent assignments. You can also have blocking assignments, non-blocking assignments. I'll explain them. Okay, so these details I'll come to you later. So these are defined functions. Some are already defined. We'll come to this. There are many different ways of doing this. Okay, now let's see how we can call one module for another module. All right, so let's see. So I have a 4-bit adder. Adder 4 is the module name AB. Note one thing. Earlier we say AB. These earlier we called them as they are single bits. Here they were single bits AB. Here they are vectors. Here they are vectors with indices 0 to 3. So these are like arrays. We have declared them as arrays. These are bit vectors. or words you can say. Sin is a single bit. S is sum, which is also a bit vector, and C out is a single int. We have intermediate where variables C1, C2, C3, which are single bits. Okay, here you see these are 4 instances. Just like you say, you can call a full adder, but here you have to instantiate full adders. We don't call it call, we call it instantiate. These are 4 full adders, 4 instantiations of full adder. We name them as FA0, FA1, FA2, FA3, and these are their port lists. You can see their port list consists of each of these bits in the bit vectors. Each of these bits in the bit vector. So you can instantiate them. Okay, so this I have already explained. This I have already explained. Let's take with this simple circuit. Okay, let's start with this. So this is the overview, what you can do. Now let's start from little more basic. In fact, what I will do is that I'll really not go through all the features. There are lots of features. But one thing I can tell you, it's very much like C, except for the instantiation and the data types. We have 2 data types where, and in fact, there are 4 data types, 4 primitive data types where range, integer and real, and which are used for integer, reals are used for counting or say having some floating point representations and so on. Okay, so let us look at this. Let's look at this. How do I describe this simple circuit? I have 3 input, 2 output using a Verilog code. Okay, so the module name is simple circuit ABCXY. ABC is input, XY is output. E is an intermediate value where E, intermediate variable. Okay, it is an intermediate variable. We might have need another thing, but anyway, let's see. Okay, so G1. Okay, G1 is AND of this AND is a standard cell. It's available. Okay, so instead of defining module G1 this, I'm just like you have function definition. I'm just like you do a structure definition in C. So this means this G1 is a AND module. G1 is a AND module with post list EAB. And the AND module is internally again already described, so that E is the output, AB is the input, and so on. So this AND module I am assuming to be already declared. Here I have already defined. Here I have declared G1 to be an AND module. G2 is an OR module. G3 is an OR module. Sorry, not module. G3 is an OR module. Okay. So these 3 lines are actually 3 instantiations. That means the first line says I have this get. The second line says I have this get, and the third line says I have this get. And their net port lists, give you the interconnection. You see that this E and Y are the input to E and Y. E and Y are the input to G3. Y and C are the input and outputs to G2, and X, E, Y are the input output to G1. So the way you define your port list will give you the interconnection. Okay, so this is just a circuit description. Along with this, you have a test bench for ABC. So test bench for ABC would consist of an waveform for A, waveform for B, waveform of C. If you run the simulation with that test bench, you will get the outputs. Okay, so this and or this standard cells or standard things that we defined, these are called keywords. These are called keywords. Keywords are usually represented by lowercase characters. All right, so this is another example. This is another example. Point to be noted is this concurrency. is this instantiation. Okay, now so here what I have done, I have basically called another standard module add. I've called another standard module add. I could have also done this by a assignment statement. So this is an assignment statement. Instead of this, I could have also written assign E equal to A and B, assign Y equal to not C, assign X equal to E or Y. I could have also written like that. Okay, so this is the standard form of assign statement. Ampersand stands for and, pipe stands for or, and this cap control stands for XOR. Stands for XOR. No, tilde stands for not. You have some sequential procedural statements, as we have told. One is the always. Always is like a loop. So always at the rate followed by some expression, some within brackets some statements. Whenever that event is active, this following statements will be executed. You can have initial statements. These are executed only once, and you can have if then statements. Okay. So this I have already told, where it defines internal connection and so on. Okay, so this is the equivalent statement using equivalent program using assign. No, this is a different circuit. Okay, this is an example of an assign. Okay, so I think if you go through these slides, you will. I'm not repeating them. So this is where you can have a behavioral description, not as a, this is a Boolean description, Boolean expression. This assign is a behavioral statement. It is not a structural statement. It is a behavioral statement, whereas this is kind of a structural statement. Instead of a Boolean expression, you can also give the structural statement as an truth table. So this comes like this. So suppose I have a truth table on ABC where min terms are 0, 2, 4, 6, 7. So you write this as table, and then you write the variables. This colon separates anything to the left of the colon is input, right of the colon is output. And then you have a end table, and then you have a primitive. So this is a user defined primitive. Okay, this is some kind of new truth table which you want to define, say majority truth table or something. This is a primitive. One thing about truth table is that you can only have a single output truth table. You cannot have multi-output truth table. Okay, so this is, as we have said, this netlist are used to tie them, or to tie them. This is a data flow kind of thing. This is another so this vector thing is sometimes called a bus. This is a vector of bits is called a bus. This is a comparator. You can in addition to this logical operation, you can also have this comparison operation. Okay, so this alt B is the output of a comparator, which will be true if A is less than B. So you can have arithmetic comparison also. So what the synthesizer does this when you write this comparator. So this comparator is not a standard cell. So what the RTL does in the RTL, this will be converted to gates by which and a layout. Okay, these are automatically converted. This is an example of a sequential assignment. What it means is that so the inputs is AB select, output is out, output is a storage variable, register variable. Always when select or A or B is true. So this whenever this expression is true, if select is 1, output is A. If select is else, if select is 0, output is B. Okay. So can you tell what this describes basically? This is a 2-to-1 multiplexer. This is a 2-to-1 multiplexer. Okay. Whenever either select is high or select is on or A is on or B is 1, you do this. So this if else is an example of a conditional statement. So this always means whenever there is a change in value of A, B select and this still is true, then you do this. Oh no, I think sorry. This is not a logical OR. This is not logical OR. Whenever any of this value changes, then always is then these statements are executed. So that's the so this always means any of these values should change. Okay, so there is one more thing we will need, particularly for simulation, is a delay. So what this means is that this #30 means that G1 is a AND module with a delay of 30. So this AND gate, we really don't bother it CMOS or what the technology is, but it should have a delay of 30. So this is the gate delay of 30 it should have. Artificially we make it. So G1 is an AND module with a delay of 30. So this is particularly used when you are doing the timing diagrams, and with the delays intentionally included, you can look at the final timing and verify everything is correct. All right. So this is another important thing called a test bench. Okay. This is kind of the input values or stimulus that you give to simulate the circuit. We name the module as this. Naturally, this is kind of a void function. That means it has no input output. So test bench is a data kind of thing. It's a input data kind of thing. It's a you also write it as a module, but kind of a void module with no port lists, with no net list, terminal list. Sorry. So you have in this test bench, you have this following variables. You have 3 register variables which return their value A, B, C, and 2 where variables X, Y. Okay, so we instantiate this CWD. CWD is a circuit with a delay. Some circuit, let me see what circuit it is. A circuit with a delay with this terminal list or port list. And this is the description. So this is initial. So this means this initial thing will execute only once. Okay, what this means, let us try to understand. Begin A is a one bit all 0. B is 1 bit all 0. C is 1 bit all 0. Okay, so first you set A to be a single bit 0, B to be single bit 0, C to be single bit 0. So as you start the simulation, first all these 3 are set to 0. Then you have a delay of 100. So for 100 time unit, all these 3 will be 0. After 100 time unit is over, A will be a single bit 1, B will be single bit 1, C will be single bit 1. So all 3 will, after 100 unit, will be 1. Then it will stay 1 for 100 unit of time, and then it will finish. That's the end of the test module. And this is the circuit description. So you see this test bench will consist of this signal description along with the module that we will test, the circuit modules that we will test. This is the definition of the circuit module. This is E is AND of G1. E is the first AND gate 1. G3 is OR gate 3. G2 is NOT gate 1. And these are the connections. Okay. This finish means $finish means in a simulation student. So if you run this simulation, you will get a VCR output, VCR file output, which will contain these waveforms. It will contain these waveforms. You can have a time scale comment which says how much 1 unit of time means, which means how much of 1 unit of time means. This shaded area means it is undefined. Okay, so combinational circuits we have seen. Let's quickly see how does say a D latch works. This is a D value. By the way, you can initiate this where variables. Okay, they can be again of different type. These where variables can be say supply 1. They can be a logic input of 1. They can be supply 1, supply 0. Okay, there can be various type of where variables, which are like constants. All right, so let's try to write a module for a D latch. So input is D and clock, output is Q, and Q is a register variable. Always, whenever D or clock changes, if clock is 1, Q is D. Simple. If clock is 1, Q is D. That is a simple D latch that we talked about. Okay, so this will happen whenever D or clock changes. Let's see a D flip-flop. So again, input output like this, always at positive edge of clock, Q is D. Always just instead of a D latch, we have a D flip-flop, edge triggered flip-flop. Positive edge of clock, you have Q equal to D. Okay. All right. So here again. So see, sometimes you can. So these, as you said, in by default, these statements will be concurrent statements. If you have multiple statements, they will be concurrent statements. You can have a blocking command to make them serial. You can have a blocking command to make them serial. Okay. Say, let's see this. All right, so let's see this. So Q1 equal to D, Q2 equal to Q1. What this means is that this equal to is a blocking assignment. That means they will be serially executed. Serially executed. Instead of equal to, if you write less than equal to, they are parallel, they are non-blocking. So the same two statements, here they are blocking, that means serially they will execute. Moment I put this left angle, this become non-blocking. They can be parallelly executed. Okay, you can have more complex circuits. This is a D flip-flop with reset. This is a D flip-flop with reset. You have a, if reset is not 1, then you have a concurrent execution of 0 and D. You have a concurrent execution of 0 and D. Okay. So those type of things you can have. In general, you can have an FSM. So using the above always statement, you can have an FSM. So this is a general FSM, milli and Moore. You can have different type of SIM. So, okay, there are several examples. Let's look how they look like here. So this is a typical Moore machine for a sequence of 3 ones. So let's have this. Input is this, and state is a vector. There are 2 states. So state is a vector 0, 1, bit vector 0, 1. All right. So then you have some parameters. So S0 is 2-bit 00. S1 is 2-bit 01, and so on. All right, so let's see what happens. So how you write this? You write this using something called a case switch. So FSM is typically written as a case switch in a non-blocking manner. So case switch means, so these are the parameters. So you see these parameters are nothing but the state assignments that we did. Okay, why you need the state assignments? We need the state assignments so that you can write the case statements. So these are the 4 possible state assignments for 4 constants, that we say 4 parameters or 4 constants. And then this state is a variable. The case state, whether if it is state 0, it matches parameter 0 or matches parameter 1, 2, 3. If x is 1, then S1 is the state, else S0 is the state. So these are the transitions from S0, either a self transition, self loop, or transitions to S1, depending on the input X. Similarly, this is the transitions from S1, these are the transitions from S2, these are the transitions from S3, and end case. And finally, Y is equal to 1 if it is in state S3. Okay, so if you simulate it, you will get something like this. I'm not going into this. You can have a sequence detector, and you can also have a blocking statement so that you can sequentially do it. Okay, you can have a milli machine for the equivalent milli machine. You can have the vending machine. You write. So basically, what you do, you write down the state diagram of the FSM, and from that you use the case statement to write the Verilog. It's easy. You just follow this, how to write the case statement. Okay, so I think, see, there are many features. Okay, so I am not going through all of them. But I think this is very much like C, so it will not be much of a problem for you. I think this you have all done. These steps you know. If you run your Verilog thing. So there are 3 steps actually. There are 3 steps. Okay, so let me tell the steps. So first you have to install iKeras. By the way, this iKeras is a free Verilog. It doesn't have all the functionalities of Verilog, of the synthesis steps specifically. The commercial ones are more costly. So this iVerilog is free, and you can first thing you have to do a .v file, which is a Verilog file. So using Notepad or something, you write a .v, which are these programs you have discussed. And then you have to write, I'll give you the setup commands. So first you have to compile it. You have to write iVerilog. I'm just forgetting it. I'll check out. You search Google, you will get it. iKeras then .v file. And if you, by default, it will make a.out. If you give -o, it will give something else. Then you execute your a.out, it will give it. If you give a test bench, it will make, and you write something called a dump command. You write something called a dump command. There is also, I forgot one thing, there is a display command to display the output, and there is a dump command to dump the thing. It will create a VCR file. Then you have another software called GTK wave. If you write GTK wave followed by this VCR file, it will plot the waveform. So let me give you. Let me see. Have I deleted it? Anyway, maybe I have deleted. I'll come back to a small program. So let's look at this assignment. So basically, you have to write down the double function in a Verilog format. So the standard things are given. This is the full adder. Full adder is given. Full adder with delay is given. Ripple carry adder is given. D flip-flop is given. Okay, so all the structural description, everything is given. Test bench is given. Everything is given. All you need to do is that the sequential double algorithm with 8-bit, sequential double 8-bit. So basically you will be using these modules. So these modules are already described here. You can use these modules. You have to use them and write the sequential double algorithm in a as a Verilog file, in a Verilog format. Okay, and then just like there is a main program, there is a top module. It's called a top module. So you have to write a top module usually, or your display statements are there in the top module, and your dump statements where you write the simulation for the test bench, dump file statements are also in the top module. Okay, and top module will call the other modules, all the circuit modules. So what you do, this converter, sequential double converter, you have to write the different functions using all these basic modules, and then you have to write a top module which will simulate this using the test benches. Maybe you can write your own test bench also, test benches, and then simulate it and create a VCF file. And using GTK web, you have to visualize the GTK web. You can also write simple display statements to write out the logic values to check if they are correct or not. Okay, so I hope all of you could install this. All of you could install this and do that. So let me see if I have a. No, I don't have it yet. Anyway, you can maybe write it. So the commands for running iVerilog, and then so you have two steps, just like you have a compiler when you create a.out and then you just run a.out using. So those steps you search in Google, you will get it. It's, just in the beginning only it will come, and then you write this. So that's it. Okay, that's the program. So any doubt regarding anything I discussed? Any doubt regarding anything I discussed? Maybe I should, I don't know if I should show you. Maybe what you can do is that you can try out simple files. Okay, you can try out simple things to do out. Maybe this is a sample program. I can show you a sample program. If you run it, you can find out maybe. All right. So anything else? Anything else you want to discuss?